All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special guest. Let me give you a couple of words about my guest. Author, CEO, advocate, survivor. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Kinyatta E. Gray. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. First and foremost, like I said before, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. Basically, you're going to talk about something very important, and I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. Man, this month is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, okay? And you are a domestic violence survivor, okay?
Yes.
So before we get into, your story and this, that, or what have you, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other things that you do as well.
Yes.
Now, as I said before, you are an author, okay? You've written 5 books, correct?
Correct.
All
yes.
Right. Now, from what I was saying, 5 books in a year?
In under a year, in about 10 months, yes.
Okay, that's a lot of time to be writing, okay? All right. But I want to talk about your latest book. Your latest book is called I Survived: True Stories of Domestic Abuse Survivors and Their Courage to Live an Abuse-Free Life.
Yes.
Man, so I know a little bit of the process. I read that basically, a lot of people submitted works about their dealings with domestic violence, but you narrowed your selection down to 5.
Yes.
What was it about, those 5, women's stories, that made you select them?
Yes. So I selected those stories because they were different. They weren't the normal narrative that you think when you hear domestic violence, heterosexual relationship, man assaulting woman, right? So these were very different stories. One woman, she wasn't abused at all, but it was her mother. And so she grew up in a household where she witnessed her mom being abused. But people don't normally think about that as like a domestic violence situation. Then there was another woman that actually was, but she was in a relationship with someone that was pretending to be a doctor. And it was just, yes. So they were putting on this huge facade. And then at the end of the day, they were just this abusive monster. So it was very interesting. So just different stories that I thought were very interesting, so that if you're reading the book and you know someone, or if it's you, you're like, oh my God, maybe I'm in an abusive situation. So.
Okay. So you know what? That's great. Now, I think it's very interesting. Like you said, the one woman, she wasn't even abused, but she's seen, domestic violence in her house. So
right.
That causes like the PTSD. And I think that's something that, people rarely talk about, but really do need to talk about, because that transfers over into your, relationships later on in life.
Right.
So kudos to you. So
thank you.
Let me just ask a little bit more about the book. How has the book been a source of help for women going through a domestic violence relationship or marriage?
Well, so, I haven't been receiving a lot of feedback yet from the book, because it was just released maybe about 2 months ago. So It's still very new.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that one of my co-authors is from the UK. And so there has been a high demand for this download in the UK. The highest number of demand for this book was in the UK. So I'm like, either there's not a lot of products like this in the UK, or there's something significant going on in the UK. So I thought that was very interesting. And so since this is Domestic Violence Month, we're going to be doing more promoting and pushing the book out even more. So I hope to be able to, start to understand whether or not these resources, these different stories have made a difference, or, help to, bring awareness or going through in their own personal lives.
Okay. All right. I love it. And I can't wait to hear some of the, feedback that you get from this, because as I said before, these are truths,
Yes.
and some of these truths are very dark and very ugly. And a lot of people, may not want those shoes brought to light, but here they are.
Here they are.
Here they are. So let's talk a little bit about your organization, Flights in Stilettos.
Yes.
Okay. First and foremost, where did you come up with the name Flights in Stilettos?
I love that question. Everyone always asks me that question. So Flights in Stilettos, I literally came up with that name after traveling through the airport in stilettos. And so, right, there was no magic potion. I mean, it just was that, right? And so I decided to join a travel club. And when I joined the travel club, I just thought about it that if I was to travel again, I'm definitely going to be cute wearing stilettos. And so I just said Flights in Stilettos, and that was my account name. And so for some reason, a good friend of mine asked me, well, what is I don't know why she wanted to know. She knew probably it was going to be cute, right? So she was like, what's your account name? I said Flights in Stilettos. She was like, Kinyatta, that is so cute. You need to make t-shirts. So t-shirts turned into, a whole lot of stuff. And now here we are, Flights in Stilettos. So it is trademarked. Flights in Stilettos is trademarked. Okay. So I own it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, because as soon as I seen like the name, I'm like, okay, all right. I mean, I see all that it does. I'm just trying to, where did we get the name from?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
There you go. You just schooled. All right. Okay. But let me just ask, in your mind, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about domestic violence that you think society has?
I think that some of the biggest misconceptions are that men aren't victims of abuse.
True.
I think that people don't realize, or one of the misconceptions is that elder abuse exists. You don't think about that, right? But yeah, you have some people at home abusing their parents. And so that is a form of domestic violence. And then the impact, even if you haven't personally been abused, but if you've witnessed it or lived in a household, you're just as traumatized as the person that has been abused. And so, so I think that those are the kind of things that people don't really understand about domestic violence.
Okay, and that was going to be part of my next question, how likely is it that a person can be in a relationship of domestic violence and not know it, because so many times I hear stories about, people, this person did this and this person did that, and they've been doing it for a long period of time. And, in the back of your mind, you're trying to normalize things, but, something's telling you, this just isn't right.
Right. So I think, just in talking to people and even thinking about my own situation, I think that there's different degrees of abuse. And if you're not in a situation where the paramedics are being called, maybe you don't look at just being pushed or a slap as really, abuse, right? Mm-hmm. You think that if you're getting punched out, the ambulance are being called, and you have to be spread apart, then that's what is considered abuse. But right. It's not. And it doesn't even have to be physical. It can be emotional. It can be financial. It's all of those things that are abuse. So.
Okay. All right. So you know what? You basically answered that part of my next question. So I want to ask you one more thing about your program. How does your program, help people, find their way back to, being themselves again?
Wow. So when you say program, what do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Flights in Stilettos. How does Flights in Stilettos, help people find their way back,
So Flights in Stilettos isn't associated with the book.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Flights in Stilettos is a travel bit. It's a travel accessory company.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So, thank you for clarifying that. I am so sorry. Please forgive.
Yes.
Please forgive. All right. Okay. Well, man, let me just move on to you then.
Yes.
Basically, like I said before, you are a domestic violence survivor. Can you just give us a little bit of your, personal story? Like, where did it start? When did you realize that, hey, this is where I am, and how did you get yourself out of that situation?
Right. So I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I met someone that was maybe 6 to 7 years older than me, very much an adult. I was in my early teens, and I was in a situation where my stepfather had actually just left my mom, and so I was very vulnerable at the time, and looking for probably someone to cling on to. And it didn't start out as physical abuse at first. It started out, being very controlling, trying to dictate how I looked, how I dressed, belittling me, making me feel that saying things that would make me think that, God, maybe I'm not as attractive as I thought I was. But it was just different ways to just try to push me down and to break my self-esteem down. And then it escalated to, grabbing me, right? Just grabbing me aggressively. And to be honest with you, I had never experienced, I barely got beaten as a child. So I had never experienced or witnessed a woman in my family or in my life being abused. So I wasn't making the connection that that's exactly what I was going through at such a young age. It really wasn't until I got older, and I would say, so these types of things were going on. And then maybe I was about 19 or 20, and I went home with a black eye. And my mother saw me, and that was when I realized that, okay, so I knew that it wasn't normal, but I didn't know how to categorize it. And that's when my mother explained to me what I was going through. You're in an abusive relationship. You're being abused. And so it continued like that. And, I have been hospitalized on at least 2 to 3 occasions. And so again, because my stepdad left my mom, my abuser was my sole caretaker and provider.
Yeah.
Provided for me financially, taught me how to drive, helped pay my mom's rent on several occasions. So I really, really depended on this person. And it wasn't until I started to get on my own 2 feet in my early 20s, and I started to become acclimated with other people that had different kinds of relationships. They weren't being beat. They weren't, driving around all hours of the night looking for looking for their significant other. And I'm like, well, why isn't this? Why don't I have that? What's wrong with me? Why can't I have that? And, in addition to the abuser being abusive, this person was also a horrendous womanizer. And so, yes, a horrendous womanizer. So it got to a point where I'm like, hold the hell, you can't be beaten, cheating, it just can't be all of this, right? Yeah. And so, eventually I just started to, as I started working and surrounding myself with other people, listening to my mom, start building myself up, my self-esteem up, I started to realize, first of all, I don't deserve this. My mother didn't bring me into the world to be treated like this. At this point, now I have 2 children that I have to be concerned about. I don't want them to think that this is normal, and I deserve and I want something better for my life. And so it kind of made it easier because this person was cheating. And so I decided, hey, well, you know what? I'm going to try to find me somebody else. And of course, before I could actually completely break away, I went through some trials and tribulations. The new person I was seeing started to be the target of threats and, by the abuser and all that type of stuff. But eventually, either the abuser just decided to just give up and fell head over heels with somebody else and decided to let it go. I really can't even pinpoint how it happened, but I think, honestly, what I think happened is that the person that he was competing with was a woman. That's the person that I fell in love with. And so, yeah, look at your face. Look at your face.
No, because you know why? Well,
Yeah.
seriously, I mean, because if we just look at history and we just go by what we normally see on a TV or media or what have you, history will have you believe, well, hey, you know, you were with another man, or you were over here, you were doing this, you were doing that. Right. So automatically in your mind, this is what you are going to think. But then when you throw the twist on, well, no, it's not what you think.
Right.
I mean, it is what you think, but it's not what you really think.
Exactly.
And then, you know, that happens. Hats off to you. You know, that's all I can say. Hats off to you. Because seriously, I did a show like this earlier in the year, and the young lady told her story of how things escalated and how it got to where it did, and when she realized, you know, like the day she realized, like, hey, this isn't what it's supposed to be.
Right.
So when I hear that, you know, sometimes when I hear other people make comments like, well, man, you know, if they're going through this, why can't they just leave? Why can't they just get out? You know, or, you know what, I would just fight them back, man. It'll just be, you know, two people, you know, just the both of us doing this and the other. Why isn't that a good idea?
Why is it a good idea for people to just assume?
Well, for people to, right. Well, A, you know, for people to assume, and B, for, you know, okay, for like the victim to become the aggressor, you know, like.
Wow, yeah. You know what? I think because in a lot of cases, unfortunately, it could backfire, or it could really escalate the situation where someone loses their life.
Yes.
And and you know, I've often thought about what would have happened if I fought back. And I think if I found myself in a situation now, I may decide to fight back. But you know, it's really difficult. It's a really difficult decision. And so I you know, I don't think it's a good day. I don't think it's a good thing to pass judgment on someone that doesn't fight back. But
Well, no, I mean, and you know, I'm just speaking from society's view.
Right.
Well, you know, 9 times out of 10, that's the first thing a person's like ready to say. Well, man, why didn't you just do this? Or why didn't you just do that? Well, if they did this, then I would just do that. You know?
Yeah, no. When you're in a situation like that, you're already so emotionally beat down. You're beat down emotionally, and so you almost don't even have the strength. All you just want to do is hide and just try to avoid the next punch. You know, you're really not thinking about, you know, well, this is my day. It's going to, you know, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, man, what words of advice would you have for anyone going through a domestic violence relationship right now?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I would say is really to just know that you have value, you have worth, you mean something to the people that love you. What you're experiencing is not love, it is not normal, and it's not something that you have to accept. There are opportunities and ways and resources for you to seek help if that's what you want. And the reality is, if you stay in that relationship, it's not going to get better. No matter what he or she says, it's not going to get better. And whether he or she is with you, the person before you got beat, and the person after you going to get beat. So what you going to do? You know, what do you want for yourself? What, you know, you have to be able to envision your life, you know, living the life that you deserve and not what you have, because it's not going to get any better, and you deserve better.
Man, look, truer words have never been spoken. Thank you, Ms. Kinyatta E. Gray. Seriously.
You're welcome.
Man, well, this brings me to my last question, the question that my show is known for. So I have to ask this question.
Yes.
Miss Kinyatta E. Gray, what is the one word that best describes you and why?
I absolutely love that question, let me tell you. And so the words that I have for you is unstoppable.
Okay.
Because in spite or despite everything that I have endured in my life, I have been unstoppable. You know, I was beat down and told that I was never going to be nothing. Nobody's going to ever want me. And here I am talking to Mr. Ty Brown on your show because I'm somebody.
Yes,
So,
you are.
yeah. So unstoppable. You know, I have just done some really incredible things just with really not even a lot of support, but just determination, sheer will, wanting to prove my naysayers wrong, and just wanting to prove to myself that I can be whatever I want to be. It sounds like a cliche, but I set out to be an author. Guess what? I'm an author. I set out to be a business owner. I'm a business. So you can do what you want to do when you're determined and when you're unstoppable.
Hey, you heard the lady. She said unstoppable. I'm going to throw another word out there. I'm just going to call her a champion. You know, so he's a champion. All right, so
I love it.
You go ahead and borrow that one too. When you
yes,
unstoppable, you're gonna be a champion. All right. Okay, look here. If people wanted to get in contact with you, how can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. It's at Kinyatta Gray, the author. That's all things related to my books. And then in reference to my travel business, it's at FlightsInStilettos. My website is FlightsInStilettos.com, and my author website is KinyattaGray.com.
All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Word with Ty Brownlow. I am Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Word with Ty Brownlow, on Twitter at Ty Brownlow TV. And man, if you can't find me there, just go to my website, TyBrownlow.com. You can find this interview, plus other great interviews. Miss Kinyatta E. Gray, I greatly thank you for blessing us with your presence today. And man, I look forward to like all the wonderful things that you have coming, for, domestic violence survivors and, man, people who are just looking to make a change.
Thank you so much, Ty, for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it. And I hope that I'll see you again one day.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. All right, y'all, man. We out. Peace.
Peace.
All right.